Hello, hello. Today we are going to talk about files, sandpaper, and the Dremel tool so that you're ready to do some finishing work on your CO2 car. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is files. And before you move on to files and sandpaper and dremeling, all of your sanding on the spindle sanders and the belt and disc sander need to be finished. So you need to come get approval from me before you come and use the files and the sandpaper and the Dremel on your car. Okay, really important, because if you have lots of icky spots on your car still, you're actually just going to be wasting time on filing and sandpaper, because you should have gotten them out with the machines back there. Spots where you cannot get it out with the machine, possibly this spot right here, if you wanted to keep it a little more pointed instead of rounded, like if you were to put it on the spindle sander, it would be more rounded. And then also spots like this, where it's more pointed in there, you can't get that with the spindle sander, so we're going to have to use files on that. And then also this right here, we didn't want to round that out too much, so we're going to use files on that. This could also be a pointed spot right here where we didn't want to round it with the spindle. So again, we're going to use files first. Another thing you can use files for is kind of taking down the rough edges of your car. They're a little sharp right now, so you can use the files for that, or you can use some 80 grit sandpaper, and we'll get into the grits and all that in a second. When you are filing, the best thing to do is to put it in a bench vise. And you're going to want to grab a couple of pieces of scrap wood from underneath the miter saw in like the black bins back there, or any of the cardboard boxes that are under the miter saw. Just grab a couple scrap pieces, because when you go to put something soft like this in between two giant chunks of metal, it's going to put big dents in them. So you want to sandwich it with some scrap pieces of wood so it damages the scrap pieces and not your car. So I'm going to get this in the bench vise, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the files. Okay, we've got the car in the vise. We've got some files here. So there's different types of files. There's this rat tail file. It's rounded, so that's really good to get into rounded areas. You can also see the difference in the teeth in this one versus this one. This one has very small teeth. This one has very large, chunky teeth, and the one with the large teeth is going to take off a lot more material than this fine tooth one right here. This one also has really large teeth, and it's flat on one side and like half moon shape on the other. I like using this one to get into corners and creases. Like, it's good to get into like this corner right here, because it can get like right down into there. You just got to be careful that you don't file so much that you make another like large mark in there. You could always take it out with sandpaper later, but this one again is another half moon shape one, flat on one side and then curved on this side. It's just a lot smaller teeth on there, so that would be more for like finish filing. Mostly what we're going to be doing is taking off a lot of material, so you're probably going to want to find one that has larger teeth. And this one also has larger teeth, and this one is just flat on both sides. Okay, so this will be good for like if you wanted to just smooth out a flat surface a little bit more. It could also get into like this area right here too. That would be fine. It just might not get down into that crease very well, because there's no teeth on this edge right here. And so when that edge is against that corner down there, it's not really going to file much. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab, I really can't use this one for anything. I don't have anything. I guess I could use it in here a little bit. You could, what I like to tell people they can do with this is make extra designs in their car. So on the edges, notice how I'm only going one direction, and then I'm lifting it up, and I'm bringing it back to the top, and then I'm going back up again. I'm not going back and forth like this, because this is going to make it so that it is, it's not very controlled, and you're going to be moving it all over the place, and you're not going to get a nice, I'll do one over on this side so you guys can kind of see. You're not going to get a nice line right there. It's going to be kind of all over the place. Okay, so just like now I'm going down. It doesn't really, my teeth are going in that direction, so that's why I'm going down this time. Okay, but you guys can kind of see, like I made a pretty cool design right there on the edge of my car, and I could do like one here, I could do them like all over. Okay, so you could use this in rounded areas, or you could use it on edges like that. Okay, another, like I said, in here is going to be great with this one because it can get down in the corner. And again, I don't want to do this thing because I'm going to lose control of the file. I just go one direction, and if it starts to get really clogged up, like there's a bunch of sawdust in here and it doesn't seem to be taking a lot off anymore, there are file brushes that are right above where the files are in the tool room. And the files are basically, you walk in the tool room and they are straight ahead, eye level. And then the file brushes are right above it, and you take the wire part, I forgot to grab one, but you take the wire part and you just brush it on here, and it gets all the sawdust out of there. Okay, another thing you can do, like I said, if you want to soften your edges up a little bit, okay, you can kind of just kind of go at an angle like this. And I'll do it on this side so you can see what it looks like over here. But this, you guys can see, like I'm barely touching this, and it is taking quite a bit off, right? So it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, especially for these files that have really big teeth on them. It doesn't take a lot of effort, okay? So you can see it knocked that edge down there really nicely. Whoop, hey. And you could do this with sandpaper too, but it's all up to you. I do want you using either the file or the Dremel, one or the other. So if you don't want to file anything, I would figure out what you want to do with the Dremel tool, and we'll go over that in a little bit after we talk about sandpaper. All right, so sandpaper, you guys have maybe seen this hanging over by, there's a gray cabinet by the drafting cabinet, and this is kind of hanging over by that. So if you ever get confused on the order in which sandpaper should go, you can kind of look at this right here. So step one, you're going to want to use 60 or 80 grit if you have really, really rough spots. Don't use 60 or 80 grit on the smooth parts of your car that you already took care of on the machines, okay? You also then, when you're done with that, you've taken care of all the really rough parts, you can move on to, I actually have 180, so you can do one and 120. So I have 2 grits in between the 100 and the 150 here. You can do 100 or 120, it doesn't matter, either one after the 80 or 60 grit. When you're done with the 120 or the 100, you can move on to 150 or 180, okay? And then after that, you need to get my permission. I need to check your car over, make sure it's nice and smooth. Then you're gonna use some 220. And you are going to finish sand the rest of your car until it is like baby butt smooth, okay? So let's take a look at these sandpapers here real quick. This is an 80 grit, and it is a really rough sand, right? It's got bigger grit sand in here, okay? I know it's 80 because when I flip it over, it says 80. Now sometimes it does not say a number on the back. So I'm gonna go with, the next one I grabbed is some 120. So this one has a little bit less of a grit on it. Okay, you can tell by feeling it. Obviously, you can't feel it through the video, but you can go grab some paper over there and see. But when I turn it over, there's just this weird number right here. That's not the actual grit of the sandpaper. But if I'm to look at other grits in that drawer, because it's in the gray thing next to the drafting table, there's the drawers over there are labeled with what grit sandpaper is inside. Don't just take for face value that that is the sandpaper that is in the drawer. People put things back in the wrong spot, so you want to make sure that you grab the right sandpaper, okay? But you can compare it with another piece in there. If you look at it, they look like the same kind of sandpaper, but you're unsure if this is 120 because there's no number on the back. Well, if I find another piece, it actually tells me on that piece that it is 120, okay? So you can kind of decipher that way if you have the right sandpaper or not. Again, don't just take for face value that, oh, it's in the 120 drawer, it must be 120. No, somebody might have put it in the wrong drawer, so you want to double check. Here's another good example. I grabbed some 180, okay? This one's been used, this one is not, so they look a little different, but they are actually the same sandpaper. If I flip it over, this one actually looks like it's 80 because the 1 is cut off, but it's not. So that's why you have to compare it to other grit sandpaper that's in the drawer, okay? So if I grab that other piece and I look on the back, oh, it's actually 180, okay? So I'm kind of going in order here. I had 80 and then 120 and then 180. And then the very last one, you guys need to get approved. Oh, sorry, here's some 150 too. So actually I should have shown you this before the 180. The 150 and the 180 are very similar, so that's why you can choose one or the other. And then the 100 and the 120 are very similar, so that's why you could choose one or the other there. And then the very last one you need to get approval before you use is the 220, okay? Right there, 220. And this is really, it almost feels like paper. That's how fine the grit of sand is on this sandpaper, okay? So, run through it one more time. 80 or 60 on the really rough spots only, and I will have this listed on the board for you guys when you are sanding so you remember. And then you can move to 100 or 120. You can always get permission from me before you move to the next grit to see if, okay, yeah, I'm ready for that, so you're not wasting time. So 80 or 60, and then 100 or 120, and then 150 or 180. Then you for sure need to get my permission for the 220, okay? After the 220, you get to paint, okay? But I'm going to go over the Dremel next for anyone else who may want to use the Dremel. You do not have to use the Dremel, but you have to do the filing or the Dremeling, one or the other. Please don't move on to the sandpaper, the hand sanding, until you have Dremeled or filed. I know I should have done the Dremel after the filing, but I didn't. So just know, filing or Dremeling, then you finish with sandpaper. Sandpaper is the very last thing that you do, okay? All right, we are going to talk about the Dremel today. This plugs into an outlet. Make sure when you plug it in that it is in the off position, okay? If it is on when you plug it in, it's gonna turn on and it's gonna scare you, and it might hurt you if your hand is close to the bit, okay? So the way that we change the bits in here, there's a little collet, and then there is a locking button right there. So if we push this button in, we can go ahead and move the collet here. You see it's not really moving, right? That means that's good. That's in a locked position. Then we can take the wrench and go ahead and loosen it up all the way. This one has gotten a little bit finicky, so you really have to push hard on that button so that it locks, and then you might have just seen it loosen. Once it's loose, I can pull my bit out, okay? I really like these bits. See if it'll focus here. They have large teeth on them, and they can do a lot of work in a small amount of time, okay? I have a whole case of them, and they make different designs. They do different things, so you can just grab a piece of scrap wood if you want to Dremel and try to do on the scrap wood what you want to do on your actual piece of wood, okay? I will just stick with this bit right now. So I'm going to put it in. I'm going to make sure my finger is still on the lock button, holding it all the way in. And then I'm going to tighten this up with my hand and just kind of snug it up with the wrench. You don't have to over tighten it. That's why this is getting a little iffy down here, is because kids have been over tightening it. Don't do that. Just snug it up a little bit so that it doesn't loosen up while you're using it, okay? I also have in here that you're going to move in the direction of the arrow. You're gonna move this, like I'm gonna move it this way, okay? The reason for that is because it's rotating this way, and so we wanna move against rotation, just like we talk about with the sanders. I am just gonna do a little something on the front here. I just kind of penciled it out. You guys can do the same thing on your piece. And you can do this in the bench vise, or you can do it outside the bench vise. You do need to have safety glasses on for this. I'm gonna, let's see if I can, I'm gonna try and move my camera so that you guys can actually see what's going on. Give me a second. Okay, we're gonna help with this for you guys here. So I like to just turn it on full speed here. And I'm just gonna kind of follow my line. I'm not pushing very hard, you guys. I'm going really light. And it's probably not going to look very good at first, okay? Just kind of pay attention to how I'm moving it. I'm just kind of wanting to create a little bit of divot in here. So I have a little bit of aerodynamic, extra aerodynamic. And then as I get my line nice and crisp, I can kind of start to push just a little bit harder and hollow it out. We're kind of working on one side here. Again, you guys can see this doesn't look very good right now, but the more you work on it, the better it's going to look. And as you get it to like the depth that you want it, hopefully you guys can hear me talking over this. As you get it to the depth that you want it, you can't see when I do that, let's go this way. You can't see that either. I'm going to watch my fingers. I'm just going to work back here for right now so you can still see, hopefully. But as you get to the depth, then you can kind of lighten up on your touch. I'm not right now because I'm still not where I wanted it to be. I'm holding it on the back end right now, kind of awkwardly so you guys can see. And I did just kind of go outside my line right now, so not a big deal. I'll just kind of make it look like that's what I meant to do and get the rest of my line outside my line. But this is why you guys should practice first on a piece of scrap wood. So you can see I'm moving it in different ways as well. I have it face this way now instead of face this way. You can see that was a pretty deep cut right there because it burned it. Okay, now I kind of got it to where I want it, so I'm going to round this edge out a little bit here. Make it a little smoother so the air can travel over it nicely. And then, you guys, you're not going to get a nice cut with this. You're going to end up going over it with sandpaper when you're done. And I would start with 80 grit for this because it's going to be pretty rough looking, okay? I'm not going to finish this because it will take a while. Please make sure it is completely stopped before you set it down. But you can see, made a nice little divot there. So it's a little bit smoother on the side that's more towards my face. And then I didn't get to the other side yet, but I would round that out, okay? Now, it really depends on what kind of look you're going for. I had somebody make a bus and they drew like bus windows on the side here, and they carved out the windows and the door. Again, this is not a very easy tool to use. It's hard to get your things to look nice, so I would do a lot of practice before you do it on your actual car, okay? But there's lots of fun things that you could do with it. I had somebody make flames like on the back of their car. They made like little indents for where they were going to paint the flames. So there's lots of cool ideas that you can do with it. Unfortunately, right now I only have one Dremel. Hopefully in the future I have more. So we'll kind of have to plan out who's going to use it when. But I hope this video helped show you guys some different things that you could do with the Dremel. And like, say you wanted to use, it's kind of hard to see because the cap is on, but like that one right there, maybe you wanted to just like take that one and go straight into your Dremel and make like little polka dots or something. So there's lots of different cool things that you can do, and I hope a few of you use it because I've seen some really cool designs come out of it. So have a great day.